Good evening, night shifters. This is third Shift HFY. Settle in, and let tonight's stars tell their story.
The Galactic Council chamber was quiet, not by choice, but by necessity. Noise was for the optimistic, and no one on the chamber floor had dared be that, for weeks. A sphere hovered at the center of the amphitheater, its surface rippling with star maps and casualty estimates. Bright colors turned to red to black. The black spread. Sector 31 is gone, rasped Chancellor Veldorian, his voice cracking beneath his carapace. A total signal loss. No survivors. Murmurs bubbled from the tiers of representatives. Long-necked Soran blint in unison. The shell-armored K-track clattered, claws on the railings. A dozen species, one shared dread. "We will lose the core systems in under a cycle," said High Strategos Vinel from the military wing. "There are no patterns, no demands, just erasure." Ambassador Nedil of the Andurians floated forward, their translucent skin fluttered with anxiety. "Then we must speak of them." The air thickened. "No," snapped Veldorian. "The resolution of chains was absolute. They adapted to quantum war fronts within a single generation. They broke every law of equilibrium. They refused neural compliance protocols." Venel growled. "They were insane. And yet they survived everything," Nedil replied. "We exiled them for fear they'd conquer. Now we die for fear of calling them back." Finally, from the shadows of the upper tier, a voice none had heard in centuries echoed. "I still remember their scent," said the last living signatory of the chain. Her eyes gleamed, and their eyes, gods help us, their eyes, burned like they remembered every betrayal. A vote was called. A transmission array activated. Coordinates were sent. A prison gate in the galactic dark began to open, and far beyond the last known star, Earth flickered awake. The outpost on Ephra 9 was a listening post. It had no weapons, no fleet, no glory. Just 100,000 years of silence to monitor. When the gate opened, the silence screamed. Technician Ilverin adjusted his neural lens, eyes flicking between spectral readouts. That can't be right," he whispered. Signals flooded through. Some were basic, electromagnetic pings. Others more advanced, compressed gravitic pulses, layered with archaic encryption. And one was a song, a children's lullaby, Old Earth, played backwards. The AI core attempted to translate. It caught fire before it could finish. From the debris, a final word crackled through in a dozen languages simultaneously. Return. On the capital world, Strategos Vanel watched the decoded signal wash across the chamber's main hall. "It's them," Nadil breathed, both awed and horrified. The hologram displayed a ship, massive, ugly, unpainted, spikes of armor, primitive by council standards, yet pulsing with unknown power. The ship's name was etched in hundreds of languages, but the original, in jagged old Terran code, read, "Colony Ship Revenant. Status, awake." "Impossible," hissed Veldorian. "We buried them." Vanel's voice dropped to a whisper. "We thought we did." The feed shifted. A face appeared. Not quite human, pale, bold, eyes so dark they reflected stars behind them. No movement behind him, just black. And then he spoke. "We received your invitation," he smiled, too wide. "We accept." Security drones floated between every seat, not for protection, but to remind each delegate that chaos would not be tolerated, not again. The chamber lights were dimmed. The revenant signal pulsed at the center like a heartbeat. Low, insistent, alive. Chancellor Veldorian stood atop his dais, mandibles twitching. "You have invited them back, a species exiled not for crime, but for incompatibility with civilization. And yet they responded. Endil countered, eyes glowing softly. Unlike the Ascended, unlike the Vothker Hive, unlike the Old Guard, only Earth returned our call. A representative from the Crystal Tribunal hissed, shards along her spine vibrating. They shouldn't even exist. They burned faster than they evolved. They are outliers, errors. Strategist Venel cut through the noise. We need them. A silence fell. He stepped forward, claws clicking against the polished stone. The Devourers are adaptive. They learn every tactic, break every defense. We've thrown weapons, fleets, psionics, entropy storms. Nothing slows them. He tapped the floor. A section rose, showing battle footage from a millennia-old archive. Primitive human infantry, wearing outdated armor, surrounded, outnumbered, laughing. The clip cut to black. Then, the aftermath. The enemy had been routed. Not defeated. Not surrendered. Erased. The room was still. They learned faster than the enemy. Venel whispered. They broke the equation. They broke everything. Veldorian snapped. They killed entropy with will. They conquered space with rage. They don't belong in this galaxy's ecosystem. From the shadows, the elder voice returned. Neither do the Devourers, she rasped. Dozens of eyes turned toward her. Her robes had shifted. Beneath them, faint burns still glowed from a battle long before the war ever began. The humans are not our allies, but they are what we created, what we feared. And now, her voice cracked. They're awake. The council voted again. This time, not to contact, but to prepare. The gates had not opened in 700 years. No one remembered what they looked like anymore, only that the sealed coordinates were located deep beyond the Centauri fracture. Inside a stretch of dead space, the council had marked quarantined since the resolution of chains. Now, date K7 flickered with light. The station orbiting the void was small, automated, monitored only by a crew of 3 synthetic overseers. When the gate pulsed active, the station's internal sensors began failing, one by one. Not destroyed, not damaged, overwritten. In the council hall, Veldorian's voice was sharp. What do we know about the gate's condition? Nothing, the analyst AI admitted. It reassembled itself. What does that mean? It means the gate didn't just activate. It rebuilt itself first. Strategios Venel leaned in, eyes fixed on the live feed. A ship slipped through. It was not the same as the Revenant. This one was smaller, sleeker. A strike vessel, perhaps. Plated in dull grey armor, its surface marked with symbols that twisted through languages. Some alien, some human, some unknown. No emission signature. No engine signature. No communication. Then it spoke. Not through signal, but directly into the minds of those watching. This is a Terran recon vessel. Designate. Lantern. We have responded under Article Null of the Ancient Compact. Contact has been established. We will meet with the Council in one standard cycle. And just like that, the ship vanished from visual range. Still there, but unseen, hidden in some fold of light the Council's finest minds couldn't explain. Medel whispered, "They've advanced beyond stuff tech." "No," said Venel, voice low. "They've abandoned it. They are past detection. They've become optional." Veldorian clicked his mandibles twice. "Are we prepared to receive them?" The chamber was quiet again. And then, the doors to the outer gallery opened. 2 humans entered, walking side by side, helmets under one arm, posture casual, almost dismissive. No guards, no fanfare, just presence. One was tall, dark-skinned, eyes scanning the room like a tactician in a war already won. The other was smaller, pale, weathered, with cybernetic scars spiraling down her neck like roots. She smiled faintly. "Councils," she said, bowing slightly. "We've come to clean up your mess." The chamber had never felt this quiet. Not when the Arcos demanded blood reparations. Not when the Screamers reached a galactic core. Not even when the sun of Teskar Prime collapsed mid-broadcast. But now, two humans stood at the center of the floor, unarmed, unsmiling. The tall one introduced himself first. Commander Arlen Dross, Terran Defense Accord, Strategic Liaison, Provisional Rank. Then the woman, Dr. Alira Vance, Archivist, Voice of Continuity. Her title earned glances. Archivist was not a military designation. It was a title given to those who remembered the entire history of a people. And the way she said it, as if Earth's history had never truly stopped. Beldorian's voice clicked. We appreciate your arrival, though your timing and methods raise questions. Alan Dross simply replied. No one else answered the call. Vance took a small device from her belt and placed it on the table. It unfolded like a blooming flower, then projected a hologram of a human child's drawing. Crayon, paper, a ship, a monster, a soldier with a glowing arm. This was uploaded across your broadcast frequencies, she said calmly. From what's left of our outer reach colonies. It was drawn by a 6-year-old, 30 minutes before her planet fell. She let the image hang there. You called for help. We responded. But not as citizens, not as allies, not as friends. She looked at them all, her voice never rising. You sealed us away, made us the monster under the floorboards. And now that something worse is knocking, you want the monster to answer the door. Chancellor Veldoreen started to object, but Arlen Dross raised one hand, slow, respectful, firm. We're not here for your justifications. He turned toward the central projection of the Devourer fleet, paths, red lines streaking like blood toward the Council worlds. We're here to prevent extinction. Yours, ours, and theirs. Dr. Vance added, and if we succeed, the next time you consider sealing a species away. She reached forward and deleted one of the red lines from the map. And she'll remember that humans don't stay buried. The hangar bay of the Lantern stretched wider than most Council ships could imagine. Not for aesthetic, not for ego, but for containment. Every bolt, every step, every breath was calculated. Commander Arlen Dross stood before a tactical display, its red and blue lines shaped like wounds stitched across void space. He traced them with his eyes, but not like a general, more like a cartographer of extinction. Behind him, rows of soldiers moved in eerie silence. No marching, no shouting. Each one methodically checked armor, tested neural links, calibrated weapons older than some stars. They were not Terran military. They were continuity regiments, survivors of colonies that no longer existed, volunteers, orphans, descendants of sealed Earth. Some wore standard exo-armor, others had adapted, gene-tuned skins, reactive tattoos that shimmered with threat response. One soldier moved with a fluidity that suggested no bones, only reinforced tissue and combat instinct. At the far end of the bay, Dr. Alira Vance watched a containment pod unlock. It hissed open, steam curling off its frame. Inside, it stirred reverence for what was lost, and zero illusions about what's coming. Not a person, not quite a weapon. Something humanity had never used before the sealing, because they never had to. The creature inside looked up, humanoid, emaciated, its eyes pitch black, skin lined with glowing fractal etchings. When it breathed, the air nearby distorted, as if reality winced with each inhale. Dr. Vance nodded once. Subject 13, Protocol Barrow Light confirmed. From behind her, a voice spoke softly. Do you really think they'll understand what we've become? She turned. One of the continuity soldiers, a young man with silver-veined skin and a neural socket behind each eye. Vance answered without hesitation. No. She looked out the hangar window toward the growing shadow of the Devourer fleet on the edge of Council space.
But they'll understand what we do to monsters.
The footage came in silence. No sound, no narration, just the lantern's hangar, moments before deployment. Veldorian stared at the still frame of Subject 13. What is that? Human, Madil said softly. Technically. The insectoid chancellor recoiled. That is not evolution. That is blasphemy. It's adaptation, Venno replied. Survival without permission. They had rules before we sealed them, said the representative from the Lithari Collective. They debated ethics, morality, humanity. And you locked them away, Venel snapped. We locked them away. So what did we expect to return? A prayer. On the display, the human vessel began to shift formation. Dozens of smaller strike pods, stealth drones, and orbital manipulators separating from the hull like bone fragments from a cracked jaw. Each moved without error, without wasted space. There was no pageantry, no anthem, no demands, just coordinates and deployment. The humans had already chosen their battlefield. They didn't ask for approval, said Nodil, eyes narrowed. They already know how to kill gods. Inside Dropcraft 3, Arl and Dross sat in total silence, visor lowered, pulse even. The voice of the pilot came through. Atmospheric breach in 10. Prepping gravity anchor. Devourer signals active. 6 confirmed nests. Spreading. Dr. Vance's voice echoed through the squad comms. This is not a demonstration. This is not a message. This is surgical violence, deployed with compassion only for the future. She stood aboard the command platform, watching as humans fell. Not dropped, not launched, but descended under their own systems, wrapped in containment shells and tactical folds. Like needles into flesh. Subject 13 dropped last. The pod did not close. It burned on re-entry. And it screamed the whole way down. Below, the Devourers stirred, vast, hive-mass organisms that walked the terrain around them. Logic broke near them. Thought decayed. Until the humans landed. And then, reality remembered who made war first. The first Devourer hive was a wound across the land. A pulsing mass of twisting matter, ever expanding, feeding on gravity, physics, memory. It didn't just kill. It rewrote. Scout drone footage showed architecture bending into bone. Sky peeled like paper. Creatures that once lived nearby now shambled on backward joints, their screams made of light. Then the humans arrived. Their pods didn't slow. They hit the terrain like orbital knives. A flash, a scream, then silence. And from the dust rose shapes. Not glorious, not clean. Grimy, hardened, focused. Arlen Dross was the first to fire. No warning, no scan, just one hard pull on his rifle trigger, and the air ignited in a shockwave of kinetic force. The round sang, tuned through layers of counter-reality to penetrate Devourer biofields. It hit the nearest beast and folded it inside out. Subject 13 moved next. No weapon, no armor. It walked through the burning debris like an omen. Its skin splitting slightly along etched lines to reveal pulsing, radiant sinew. The Devourers hesitated, briefly, then charged. Subject 13 didn't resist. It stepped into their mass, arms out, and howled. Not pain, not rage. It sang. A broken Terran hymn, layered in harmonic dissonance. The sound alone shattered the closest Devourer creatures, turned them to vapor. The rest went mad, eating each other in confusion. Then the rest of the humans struck, coordinated, surgical. They called it First Strike Doctrine, the principle that overwhelming violence, applied in the first 8 seconds, could prevent an entire war. It wasn't tactics, it was truth. One soldier, call sign Weaver, deployed a gravitic net that folded Devourer flesh into glass. Another, bare-chested and laughing, rode a tank-sized crawler like a mechanical beast, slamming explosive javelins into its spine while screaming Earth myth. Fenrir awakes, monsters!
By the time the Council's observation relay caught up, the Hive had ceased to be a threat. No prisoners, no scorched earth, just absence. Commander Dross keyed his mic. Target 1 neutralized, requesting coordinates for Target 2.
3 hives, destroyed in under 11 hours. No casualties, no collateral damage, no psychological degradation reports from Terran Command. The Council reconvened in silence, again. But this time, it wasn't grief that filled the air. It was terror.
Nordil floated in her containment field, arms folded tightly across her chest, eyes fixed on the pulsing war logs. The Hive ecosystems collapsed in patternless sequences. The Devourers fled. Veldorian rasped. They consumed stars. They erased the Siren archives. And now they run from humans?
Strategos Venel stared at the feed from Subject 13's entry point. They weren't prepared for resistance that mutates faster than fear spreads. From the side chamber, the representative of the Van Art Fel leaned forward, glistening mouthparts twitching.
We have not seen war like this since the era of the silence machines. That silenced the room. Everyone knew the stories. Ancient races that had burned too bright. Civilizations that fought war so efficiently they burned themselves out of history.
Vanished not from defeat, but from the efficiency of their violence. Veldoreen broke the quiet. They didn't just survive exile, they evolved it into doctrine.
He turned toward the holoscreen. Dross and Vance standing at the edge of a ruined hive field, observing, recording, not celebrating. This wasn't a rescue mission, Veldorian said. This was a field test. From the shadows, the ancient signatory rose one final time. Her voice cracked with finality. We locked them away because we feared what they would become. But now, we fear that they became it anyway. And worse, they might be the only thing left worth fearing.
The chamber was quiet again. Not by design. Not by protocol. This time, silence was the only thing left that felt appropriate. The transmission from the Terran ship had ended 5 minutes ago. No demands, no negotiations, just an open file. Inside it, a single phrase, spoken by Commander Dross. We're not your enemies, but we remember how you treated the last problem you couldn't control. The file ended with visual data. A Devourer mothership, nearly the size of a moon, reduced to particulate ash. Not through orbital bombardment, not through collapse, through containment from the inside. The method was redacted. The implications weren't. Council security protocols were immediately upgraded. Not to track the Devourers, to monitor the humans. In orbit, the lantern prepared to vanish. Dr. Vance stood by the viewport, her fingers ghosting across the edge of the glass. "Do you think they'll call again?" asked one of the crew, a young woman with burn scars that shimmered like glass. Vance didn't smile. "They won't need to. If they survive, they'll remember. That's enough." Below, the Council debated sending thanks, but there was no channel left open. Earth had vanished again. Not hidden, not broken, just gone. Back to the dark, watching, waiting. On a backwater moon near the edge of the galaxy, a child played in the dust. She found a shard, metal, etched with an old Terran glyph. She didn't know what it meant, but when she showed it to her father, his eyes went wide. He whispered, "They're still out there, and we're still on their list."